And it is my absolute pleasure to invite Australia's chief disruptor, Pete Williams. Pete has had an illustrious career. Pete is actually an accountant, right? There you go. This is an accountant. Pete has been first of all, he has founded Deloitte Digital, which is Australia's largest digital agency.
Second largest in the world, Kai.
Sorry?
Second largest in the world.
I was going to get there.
Oh, okay, yeah. Come on, move it on.
No, I know.
I'm a racing guy. We've got to move a bit faster.
Okay. Chairman of Deloitte's Innovation Council, adjunct professor at RMIT, on many boards, and here to disrupt. I just leave it to you.
All right,
just go on.
Thank you. Come on, give it up. A bit of energy. Right. It's funny, I am an adjunct professor, and I got rang up by RMIT, and they're like, well, do you want to be an adjunct professor? And I'm like, I don't know, but it sounds all right. And then, is the first guy a proper professor? Yeah, because it's like, I know why I'm not a real professor, because I was like, what the does Gestalt mean? So it's like, and then I sort of said to them, like, what does an adjunct professor do? And it's like, contributes to our research agenda and sets guidance and that. It's like, oh, right, we're the people who do the and you research and tell us how we did it and why. Yeah, okay. So I'm Clay Christensen. I like Clay. But one of the things that his sort of first book, Innovator's Dilemma, said was, you know what, the only way you can do this is if you spin something out. And I thought, no. That's not the only way. It's just that we haven't worked out the other way yet. We haven't worked out how to do it from inside. So I always look at it, it's sort of like, if I don't know something or something hasn't been done before, it's just sort of like we haven't quite worked it out yet. So it doesn't mean it's set in stone. So I started working as an accountant when I was 17. The reason that I became an accountant was because I wanted to be a jockey. But as genetics in height and luckily with age sort of prevented that, I went on the dole. And then the bloody government brought in a law that you had to prove you applied for jobs. Oh, shit, I just want to be down with the horse, because I was still doing sort of working with the horses in the morning, but bugger it, I wasn't getting paid, I just like horses. And I thought, stuffed. So I did a resume, and I said, so I put out the letters and, go to what was it called then, the DSS. And but I put in my resume that my hobbies were drinking, gambling, and going to the pub. So it was like, you were like, I don't know, because I'll send all these letters, no one gives me an interview, and don't know what's going on, And then one day, I got an interview from at a steel foundry, actually, and and it was a cadet accountant, and the boss or the main accountant's hobbies were drinking, gambling, going to the pub too, that's how I became an accountant when I was 17. And it was sort of like, it was funny because in the interview, we spoke about horses and breeding and like that for about an hour and a half. And then, so I go, geez, I don't know if I want to be an accountant. And he's like, we played darts for money every morning tea, lunchtime and afternoon tea. I'm like, I'm in. So that was the start of an illustrious career. But back in around 1993, I was working in the UK. And it was when the information superhighway and the internet and all those people were talking gobbledygook like they normally do in tech world. It's like almost like one of the key parts of tech world is use idiotic words that nobody understands, like Industry 4.0. Oh, what happened to 1, 2, 3.0? Oh, we just jumped. But you know why? Because we got to Web 2.0 and the manufacturers, we want to go, they're like, they wanted to be 4.0. So it's almost like we have this thing of making everything mysterious, nobody understands it. But anyway, so I'd been hearing about this internet and information superhighway. I went to this internet cafe, so internet here. So I'm going to go and find out what this bloody internet thing is. So I go into the cafe and it's like, show me the internet. Bloke goes, we'll come over this computer here and wow. Look, you can look at this. I think first thing we looked at was the entomology department of the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. In '93, there wasn't that much stuff on the web, And I was like, how's this working? So we're in a cafe in London and we're looking at somebody's computer in Boston and it comes up and, it's like, who owns this? No one. What do you mean no one owns it? It's like a protocol. Well, how does it work? Well, it's just sort of taking existing computers, phone lines, modems, and sort of thought about that for about a minute and go, this is going to change everything. It's going to change everything, isn't it? And he's like, yeah. And I said, that's what I'm going to do from now on. So whether I'm a visionary or just opportunistic, it's something that I've sort of dedicated my passion to for many, many years. And the sort of notion of, people now, when you sort of, say for you who work in business, you go, oh, I've got this idea and, we're going to do digital transformation. Does anyone do digital transformation? It's like, it's sort of like you're supposed to be like a butterfly, from a caterpillar to a butterfly, but the sort of reality is, it's like putting a fucking drone on a caterpillar. It's like, oh, we're digitally transformed. No, you're not. You're still a caterpillar. You're supposed to be a butterfly. But what I've learned over the years, so back in '93 when you start saying, hey, we've got to do stuff for the internet and the web, and huh? What are you talking about? Oh, that's a fad, and you should have the dot-com boom. People were screaming from the balconies across Pitt Street and that, like, yes, we said it was a fad. Or I remember the other one in the around the 2000s. I used to hate working with insurance companies. And it would be like, they'd say, oh, come in, we want to talk to you about internet and web. And you'd be like, okay. And then they'd just be, no, it won't work. No, you can't do this. No, you can't do that. So I went to Hong Kong to do a speaking with insurance companies. And I said, right, I'm on for an hour and a half. The minute somebody says Amazon.com doesn't make money, and that invalidates the whole internet, I leave. I left in 15 minutes. I just walked out. I was like, nah, I'm not going to deal with you idiots. But one of the things you learn is that it's not about the idea. It's not about necessarily the sort of zealotry. I see this with the blockchain nutcases at the moment, Yeah, we're going to world peace, cancer, poverty, blockchain solves it, you will see. It's like, it's madness. So if we just go to a simple definition of innovation, this is probably more the doing side of innovation. I just say it's trying new ideas. So it's basically, it starts with ideas. For you, if they're new for you, you're innovating, bad luck, and you've got to try them, okay? So I see organisations all get hung up in terms of what does it mean, and is that innovation, or is that, what's that other stuff people do, this Lean Six Sigma or continuous improvement? It's like, who gives a shit what it's called? It's like, it's about doing stuff. So that's the first thing. It's like, you have to have this sort of intent, but it's about doing, not about sort of postulating and all that stuff. And then the other one that, I had an argument with crypto. I try not to argue with crypto people. It's like, because it's just, you can't. They can't deal with reality. There's never been a critical thinker in the crypto space, but other than Satoshi. But it's like somebody was saying to me the other day, oh, crypto is the only way you can do provenance. I said, oh, is it? I led or was involved in the project that put RFID tags on 27 million head of cattle in 2004, and we trace every movement of every beast in the country, and we don't use a blockchain. Oh yeah, but blockchain makes it better. Why? Oh, because it's immutable. Well, so is it. Oh yeah, but and it's like, mate, go and read Kranzberg's fourth law, will you? It isn't, we don't sort of start with, we didn't used to say, we're going to do this web project, or we could use a relational database. That's so disruptive. It solves everything. Well, no, it's not about the database. It's the element is the public issues, the non-technical factors that take precedence. To try and get an RFID chip on every head of cattle and track every movement, do you think it was really the database that was the issue? If it was distributed on a blockchain, that makes it easy. You try dealing with 33 farming organisations. You try dealing with 7 state governments. You try trying to work out who's going to pay for it. That's the hard stuff. Sticking it on a database and making the database work was like so easy. I mean, there's a few technical problems, like because the cows have got these chips in their ears or their stomach. Cows have got 4 stomachs and the sits in their rumen stomach. So let's say you roll them off a truck and you roll them through gantries like you're going through the airport, So you've got 50 cows, through they go, we only got 49 reads. All right, you lot, come back out, go slow it. No. So what we did, we put pressure sensors on the thing, and if we missed a read, sprayed them with blue paint. And say, hey, you with the blue paint, come back. But it's that sort of stuff. It's not, it's sort of, people think it's, we call it technology determinism. Because this technology exists, therefore everything will happen. And it's the same thing right now with the notion of robots are going to take everyone's jobs. Rubbish. That's nonsensical. Robots don't sort of do jobs, they do tasks. And I'm wrapped with some of the stuff that the robots have taken over since I was an accountant at 17. I used to be handwriting numbers in in hard, books. They have to calculate. All your time was compiling, calculating, stamping, shuffling paper, not thinking, deciding, doing. So firstly, understand this. And if you understand this, what it then says to you, the corollary of that is that it's not about the technology. So I can come in and sort of whiz bang about technology and the internet. Like when I came back to Australia in '96, I want to start an e-business consulting group. That was even before IBM started saying e-business. And what does that mean? Oh, it's to do with the web. What does that mean? It's like the internet. What are you talking about? It's like, you know what? It's going to be bigger than electricity. Just back me. And the boss said, well, if you can go and win work and feed yourself in Deloitte, knock yourself out. So again, what was the politics there? It was somebody saying, I don't really know what you're talking about, but as a beta or as your boss, if you reckon you can make something happen and you seem to know what you're talking about, even though I can't understand a word of it, I'll back you. That's the politics of innovation. It didn't say, do a business case and do an 8-year business plan, because you didn't even know what the internet was. So how, it would have been too hard for them. So understanding that, it's that sort of notion, it's not the technology, it's the stuff that's happening around, it's the people, it's the relationships, and it's then your capacity to engage and involve, because, what we see as organisations aren't really designed that way. I'm going to play this video. This comes from my colleagues in the US. Because they didn't found a digital company, they don't quite have the same motion graphic stuff as I do. But we wrote this paper back in 2012 or 13. It's called Scaling Edges. It's available online. And what the notion of scaling edges was like, how can you create a pragmatic pathway for organisational change? Because if you try and do a transformation initiative that's going across the whole organisation, you are going to get blocked at every corner. So where do you find that edge? Where do you find that little opening where you can say, can we find an initiative that's not right in the core but could potentially transform it? And if you can actually start to move. So you're a little bit off to the side. So it's sort of, again, I didn't do this. This is from the US firm. Obviously will not be anywhere near as the quality of the Aussie firm in terms of stuff, but it sort of works. It's a bit retro.
Success in our radically changing world requires transforming institutions and systems. Scaling edges is a pragmatic pathway to enable broad internal change. In the last few decades, we have seen rapid gains in technological performance, digital infrastructure penetration, and a global liberalization of economic policy. We call this wave of change the Big Shift. And it's fundamentally changing the way we learn, socialize, work, and play. The Big Shift enables information flow between individuals that transcends traditional organizational barriers. The result is a shift of power from organizations to individuals, empowering connected employees and customers. While some companies are harnessing the power of the Big Shift, others are getting pounded. Many firms are seeing declining returns on assets, growing competitive intensity, and a high topple rate of industry leaders. But why are so many companies struggling? Many corporations were designed for the 20th century, organized to capture efficiencies from scale with the assumption that it's possible to forecast future demand. But as the pace of change increases, strategies that were successful in the past will actually lead to failure in the future. To take advantage of the Big Shift, organizations have to fundamentally rethink their DNA and ask themselves, are we flexible enough to harness the new digital infrastructure, attracting and enabling passionate, creative employees, and incentivizing collaboration and information flow? More often than not, efforts that tackle the core head-on fail. Change requires financial and political pragmatism and a shift in focus from the core to the edges. To do so, firms should identify and focus on edge initiatives that have the potential to scale. One step is to escape the tyranny of core IT by harnessing new disruptive technologies to grow an edge. Edge initiatives should leverage external resources to overcome obstacles to scaling. One step is to starve the edge and force self-sufficiency by minimizing dedicated core resources. The edge initiative should also compress the time between investment and return. One step is to learn faster to move faster by iterating in a 6 to 12 month window versus the common 2 to 3 year cycle. Deploying an edge model requires a willingness to detach from promising core activities to build edges. However, a focus on scaling edges is imperative to catch the wave of the big shift.
So some of those things, think about design for scalable efficiency. A lot of what we talk about now is scalable learning. This notion of learning faster to move faster. And we've written some stuff, once it's called the collaboration curve. So we went and, so who do you reckon is the fastest learning communities in the world? Anybody who's got children knows? Computer gamers. Everything they do is out in the open. So we did a study, we took all the data from a whole raft of World of Warcraft servers and measured the speed at which it took for people to get to level 80, which is sort of towards the elite. If you did it on Pokemon Go, it'd be level 30, but I'm level 33. But the sort of notion of, I do something, I post it, I've got a personal dashboard, I know where I play. So I actually immersed myself into this theory, and I became, out of 5 million players on the Apple Play, that little Apple game thing on your iPad, there was 5 million players in Angry Birds space, and I was number 80. And at that point, I thought, you should probably give up. That's as far as you want to go. But the way I did that was joining a community called the Angry Birds Nest. So all the elite players were there, would share what you do. If you got a top score of all time, first thing you do would be to share how you did it. So it was this sort of collective learning. It was this sort of trust-based relationships. We're all there trying to make everybody better. And I look at organisations today and I say, perhaps the most underdone thing in organisations is social software. In the old days, people used to call it, social media in the office and all that stuff. But it's this notion of everything we do can be seen, work out loud. Do people know the responsive org? Simon knows a lot about it. The responsive org is a really good place to start. Just this sort of notion of, let's do stuff in the open, let's let people see it, let's tap into the tacit knowledge, let's make it that if it ain't there, it don't exist. So now the other one that I'm seeing, particularly with the guys at Deloitte Digital, is digital signs everywhere. It's almost like, and there's some other organisations I've been working with, and you walk through the organisation and you're like, I know full-blown situational awareness of what this team's doing. Like I've never been before, but boom, I understand what that team's working on, how they're going. So this sort of whole notion of we all know what's going on helps us learn, this notion of learning faster. Whereas the most common calls I get are the calls of where, 3 years into a 5-year, $500 million digital transformation project, and we think we might be dead by year 5. This sort of notion that people or large organisations have taken the sort of SAP, ERP model of spend hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars over many, many, many years, and even though they sort of don't understand it probably won't work, we still approach that with digital transformation, which is nuts. Digital transformation is much more about sort of speed. You can sort of tell, I think that it's just sort of lipstick on a pig, what I'm hearing about digital transformation, because I'm seeing very, very few organisations transform. They're slightly less analogue. So let's sort of zoom out and sort of think about what's really going on in the world and why organisations struggle with this. The first one is this notion of consumers are outpacing businesses. Did anybody ever have to do a business case at home to use Skype? No. I had a call from somebody in the UK who asked me if I could help them with their CIO, because their CIO had said to them when they said, look, I'm going to be working in the US for 6 months and I want to use Skype instead of my mobile. The CIO said, go and do a business case. Oh, can you help me? Actually, no. If your CIO is that dumb that they can't work out that using a free tool that's richer is better, well, how can I help? It's this notion of every time anybody wants to do anything that's slightly off the norm, that you have to have some sort of reason for me as the internal person who runs this stuff to be able to sort of give you a time. I mean, I rang the IT guys at support guys years ago at Deloitte. I had 2 network switches or plugs in the thing, and somebody was sharing my office. Like, can you switch that other network port on? Oh, you have to do a business case. I'm like, what? Just flick the switch. And if you don't do that, I'm going to come up and you'll be dealing with more than flicking a switch, mate, I tell you. It's sort of, I don't know what's going on. The tail's wagging the dog. And what the other one that we see is like people making decisions for the front line and they've got no idea. You think, running an elite web mobile dev company, you think I'm going to tell a software engineer what he should be using for his development environments or his code repositories or whatever, or she. It's like, use the timesheets, use the expenses, and just go and use whatever you want that makes your work best. And if it's open source, even better, because we're an accounting firm where we like free. You know, this notion of centrally will impose on you. It's like, you've got to start to think, if you've got no skin in the game, if you're not out in the front line dealing with stuff, don't tell them what tools to use. If you had a carpenter come to your joint, you're not going to say, oh, mate, don't use your tools. I bought these cheap ones at Mitre 10. No. It's like, let people have a bit of autonomy and choice to be able to move fast, making them sort of paralysed. Or, you know, this sort of, I've also been promoting sort of cloud computing since about 2005. We used to call it ASPs, application service providers. And it's like, still, I get it. It's like, you know, I don't believe in the cloud. It's like, well, it's not a religious issue. You know, just go and join ScoMo. We'll pray against anything innovative. The other one I see is this, the magic wand of innovation. You know, people know that is, you know, like Malcolm Turnbull when he comes in, oh, innovation, innovation, innovation. It's like, I don't know what you're talking about. What's going on? Nothing really. Shut up, will you? Just stop talking about innovation. It's giving us the and you're not doing anything. So again, you know, or you pick up an annual report. Oh, you know, oh, you've got innovation in your annual report 72 times. That's really good. What happens if you had an idea and, you know, one of your staff had an idea? What do you mean? I mean, what happens if somebody in your organisation, which has got 72 times the word innovation in the annual report, has an idea? What happens? Oh, I don't know. It's like, well, you ain't innovating. And this one, the innovation killers. This is the notion of the politics. You've got to understand what you're up against here. So, firstly, we've had a proliferation of C something O's. Do you know what I mean by a C something O? So you used to have a CEO, a CFO, and then a COO. Then the HR people start whinging. Oh, I want to be a CISO. Oh, we only usually have 3. Okay, we'll call you a CHRO. The marketing people, that took years because nobody ever understood what the marketing people were talking about. So, but now they're CMOs. But then we've got CPOs, Chief Procurement Officers. But then it's problematic because the privacy officer wants to be a CPO too. And then we got this Chief Information Security Officer to be separated from the Chief Security Officer, which I think is physical security. We've just got these people proliferating. They're breeding like coat hangers in a wardrobe. And the biggest problem is they all think they've got decision rights. They all think that I am the CPO, so privacy is the most important thing in the world, so whatever you do, Chief Information Security Officers, what do they hate the most in the world? Computers and the internet. They'd prefer you not use them, because then we'll be secure. So this proliferation of them means that you end up with this sort of infinite loop of, oh, well, you know, nah, it's all too different. Oh, no, it's all too hard. No, go away. And, you know, and then somebody says, oh, yeah, that's okay, but we'll change this. Then you've got to go through the next 50 of them again because it's like, oh, well, they changed that, so you've got to... And in the end, you just have this, what we call learned helplessness of innovation. It's all too hard. You know what? I'll just do my day job, get my check, and I'll go and do my passion project or whatever. So what I say to those people is instead of saying no, I say to them, well, under what circumstances can you say yes? Okay? That is almost like the greatest innovation political question you can have. Okay, rather than tell me no, tell me under what circumstances you can say yes. Because no is like the broad, it's the universe. The circumstances under which you can say yes are show me what you're really worried about and let's work out how we can deal with them. The other one that I'd do with them would be round table them. I call them. Sometimes I call them WOTAPs. Warts on the arse of progress. More polite people call them corporate antibodies. They're there, they've built up resistance to, you know, push away anything that could change the status quo. So you've got this sort of weird battle, but the under what circumstances I could say yes is like we actually narrow down and we get people thinking in that positive thing. It's like, okay, if we don't do that and don't do that, that's okay. So again, understanding that, you know, having an idea in a large organisation, you are going to be, you know, having to sort of work out the way to navigate. And you don't navigate by turning up with like a 65,000 page PowerPoint, $1 million consulting bill, and an Excel spreadsheet, which is 10 gigs. It's like people are sort of, oh yeah, that's how we've got to do it. And the other one is you've got to start to say to yourself, particularly as a leader, if you've got people who are trying to do stuff, are we getting in our own way? we did a paper called Get Out of Your Own Way. I came up with the title, as you could probably imagine, but it was around, we were doing this paper and it was about red tape. It was like, Pete, can you get involved in doing a paper, red tape? I said, if it's going to be red tape is bad, all red tape comes from government is bad, and we must change government, I'm not involved because the government is not capable of getting anywhere near what corporates do to themselves. So you think if you go to work, yeah, sometimes you might have to fill in a form or do some training or stuff because of some government regulation, but you imagine how much time, you think about how much time you really spend on the ground dealing with all this self-imposed stuff. And the number was sort of basically, was like 2.79, a ratio of 2.79 to 1. Corporate self-imposed versus gov. So, you know, people, oh, we cut government red tape. You want to cut red tape? Have a look in the mirror. The other one is the business case. Like, I'm an accountant and I understand these things, right? I can make a business case for the next 5 years be 20 cents, or I can make you a spreadsheet billionaire. Just change a couple of assumptions. And the reality is that somehow, I don't know what idiot did it, in the 70s, some management consultant or theorist or somebody wrote an article in Harvard Business Review, who knows where it came from. But it's like business cases are done at the wrong time. Why do a business case when you don't know anything? Yeah, predict the future of your e-business consulting group out for 6 years. I don't know. It's a startup, I don't know. Didn't realise it was going to, suddenly we'd have a web development business that we bought and you're going to be turning over 10 mil from standing start. You don't know that. It's sort of like, prove it. And I can't prove it unless I understand what am I trying to do, what are the things that I've got to prioritise and hypothesise and test. And this is one of the things I say, you know, like this sort of notion of checkpointing. Somebody starts an innovation and suddenly everybody wants to measure you, and all the risk people and all those other CPOs and all them, they want to crawl all over you about putting metrics and all that stuff on you. And it's like, don't create checkpoints, clear the path. Tell them to go away for a bit. Give me a bit of headspace. That's the politics, and these are the words I say to the masters that I sometimes or used to work to. And the reason I use this picture is, I ain't building the Sydney Harbour Bridge here. I ain't going to be running trains over it in 10 lanes of traffic. I want to see what's the quickest, cheapest way I can get from here to there and understand what that environment's like and see if I can thrive there. Okay, so again, it's this notion. If you're a leader, clear the pathway. If you find yourself checkpointing somebody, stop. The question that you need to be saying is, what do you need? What's in your way? How can I help? You know, that's the politics of it. You as a leader, or alternatively say, I need you to get your hands dirty. I need you to move this forward. And you've got to be smart enough to have relationships in the network with people who can do that. And the politics part is then leveraging it, being a bit like a Machiavelli. So Larry Keeley, does anyone know Larry Keeley? He's the guy who did the 10 types of innovation, real hardcore old bugger innovator. So Larry comes over here a bit, we do a bit of work together. He's sort of brilliant. He's got a book and apps and everything. Have a look at 10 Types of Innovation. It's one of the best innovation tools out there. I won't go into it today, but it's available for free. 10 Types of Innovation, images, copy it, stick it on your wall, and every time you do some innovation work, have a look at it. So, innovation should be technically elegant, culturally cool, and have a fair business model. If they're your guiding principles, you'll get that. If that's your true north, you'll get there. All right, this is something that politicians in Australia have to understand. And researchers and unis, Innovation is more about elegant integration than invention. If you go and pick up any document written by the innovation or science people in Australia in the last 20 years, and it says something like this. We invented the black box flight recorder, we invented the Hills hoist, we invented polymer banknotes, and we invented Wi-Fi. Big How did you make any money out of it? A little bit. Yeah, it's not about invention. It's about entrepreneurship. It's about taking stuff that's out there, creating new contexts and disrupting. But we think it's, give more money to scientists so they can go and invent more stuff that we won't make any money from. It's a different thing. Inventing, you know, what's the difference? What is an inventor? What's the definition of inventor? An entrepreneur who can't sell. All right. The other way, where do you get these ideas from? That's really dumb. Why don't we fix it? Squint at the world and say, that's really dumb, and how do we fix it? And then this one, you can put Larry's name to it, you can put me to it. So when you set up your innovation program and they create the checkpoints and there's like 16 stage gates, you say the surest way to kill innovation is to use stage gates. Because you're checkpointing, you're measuring, you're not moving. You're not focusing on the wrong thing. You're getting people worried about spreadsheets. So, how can you make it work? So, I'll show you this video. Hopefully it'll work. Better than the last ones did. No, it won't work. All right. That's why God invented the internet. So, bloke in the office, Rob Spittle. Father had a serious terminal illness. Rob was never let Google know your location. Never have a voice assistant at home. Turn your phone off when you're at home because they're listening. So Rob was very frustrated with the quality of care that his father was getting. So
it's the latest technology craze, voice-activated virtual assistants, turning your home hands-free. Now, in a world first, that same high-tech help is being harnessed at the Prince of Wales Hospital, giving bed-ridden patients a direct line to staff.
This is the conventional way hospital patients call for help. A bell and lights guide nurses to the room, but on a spinal ward, that system isn't ideal.
I'm an incomplete quad, which means I don't have hand function very well, so I can't use any of the buttons and I can't hold a lot of the control systems.
This smart speaker is making the process easier for spinal patients at Prince of Wales Hospital.
Tell the nurse I'm unwell.
Okay, I've sent a request to the nurse and someone will be with you as soon as possible.
All voice-activated alerts are triaged and colour-coded, so urgent matters such as falls and pain can take priority.
We had an early incident where a patient was in the bathroom, couldn't reach the call bell but needed assistance and was able to ask Alexa for that help.
This is a game changer for us.
Engineer Robert Spittle from advisory firm Deloitte devised the product.
The idea came from personal experience. When my father was in hospital, we saw how the traditional systems didn't work.
That redesign also enables nurses to check and manage patient alerts from their mobile devices. This system has only been trialled for a month, but the feedback from both patients and nurses here has been extremely positive.
It makes everyone's life easier.
I think that artificial intelligence is second to none.
The technology could one day expand into aged care and hospitality, but for now...
We're also in the process of designing a new hospital that we'll move into in 2022, so we want to test new technology to make sure that we're building the right hospital for the future.
Gabriella Rogers, 9 News.
Okay, so how did that happen? So Rob, annoyed with the slow response times for his father in massive pain, getting more and more annoyed. On the way to work one day, he goes and buys a Google Home, rocks into the office and says to some of the team, can you sort of see if we can knock together with that workflow software we've got in the sandbox, a system where you could use voice assistants for patients? Knocked it together, went and saw some people, a la the Prince of Wales guy was one of them. He found a lead client, okay? Has anybody heard the term lead client? Bake it into your head, all right? Read the stuff by Von Hippel. Lead clients are like gold. They're the people who are willing to give stuff a go and understand that it might not work the first time. They are not the person that's got a procurement officer, a legal officer, and a risk officer and a confidentiality agreement. They're the one that says, yeah, let's give this a crack. So, found the lead client, gave it a go, did a little bit of a pilot, came back and said, you know what? I reckon the Alexa will work better. Chucked out the Google, got the Alexa. Teamed up with Salesforce and used their ServiceNow sort of field management system. Had another go, beat best-in-class benchmarks in any sort of that sort of patient call assist stuff by any recorded ones by 75%. Smashed it out of the park. Okay. Once he did that, went to one of my colleagues, Frank Farrell, who sort of succeeded me in Deloitte Digital, but now runs a sort of global innovation. Frank's a legend. Mate, how much do you need to make this work? I need about 100. Good, here you go, take it. Okay. The thing was, we forgot to do a business case, okay? We forgot to do stage gates, we forgot all that shit. We didn't do any Excel spreadsheets. We actually did a prototype. Prototype's not PowerPoint, experiments not Excel, okay? Do your PowerPoints and your prototypes once you know when you're ready to scale. Don't do them at the start. The start's where you learn. And if you've got a stage gate process, do as much as you can. There's no law that says you've got to go to the gate. Keep away from that gate until you're ready to go. And by the time you're there, you go, ooh, we're ready to rock here. And oh, okay, go. It's that notion of that's being smart about the politics, but it's the environment that you create where somebody can come in and there's tools and there's people and there's thoughts and it's like, yeah, give it a crack. Most of the stuff that gets done in our joint at this stage is what I call discretionary effort. Hey, I'm doing something you're interested, do you want to help me? Oh yeah, I'll do it on the weekend, or bugger, I'll do it, let's do it at lunchtime and stuff. I'm working with my VR guys and they just sort of said to me, one guy's got a son who's dyslexic and another one's got a daughter who's autistic, and we're looking at how we could use VR to help educate. And then we reached out to a guy, John Monroe, who's some academic guru in the space, and you know, it's sort of like we're just having meetings at lunchtime. How do we do it? How do we push it forward? Is there any money in it? I don't care. It's like, this is some stuff that we can do. Let's explore the art of the possible. So it goes back to that explore, not trying to exploit. When you understand when you're exploring and act like an explorer. This is another one. So one day, a guy called Ken McElhenney. He's the only person in Deloitte Digital older than me. He's 60, we call him the old bloke. I call myself the young fella when I'm with him. He rocks into the office. He's got a piece of chipboard. He's got these houses and cables and silicon and pipes. What are you doing, Ken? I decided I wanted to build an Internet of Things water network, and I was going to build it in my garage, but I thought I'd do it in the office. Now we've got, those tables, funky offices that hipsters like, where you've got the long table with the high chairs. That's supposed to be for people to, serendipity and bump in. So I bugger that. Ken whacks the chipboard on that, and he starts building his water network. What are you doing it for, Ken? Oh, well, I reckon utilities should use Internet of Things, or sensors. We call them, old people call them sensors, you people call them Internet of Things, to make sure nobody understands what it means. But let's, I want to see what we can do with that. So Ken starts rocking away. And the 3D printing guys get a bit interested and, Ken, you can build that network on that chipboard, but we could print a city over it. Oh, okay. All right, well, you knock yourselves out. So next thing, they start building the city. And then the animation and the motion graphics people that they don't have in the US, but we have here, look at it and go, we could actually bring that city to life with graphics. So it sort of just, and then the boss of consulting one day must have been slumming and walked down into the Deloitte Digital area and it's like, what the hell's all this? Oh, this is what we're doing. And do you need some money? Yeah, we need some money. Yeah, good, take it. Good, so off it went. Then this happened.
Water is Earth's most precious resource. Yet we use a distribution system that hasn't dramatically changed in thousands of years, and an infrastructure created decades ago. Today, up to 20% of all water in this system is lost in leaks. So, what if this network, buried beneath our feet, was completely transparent? Measured, monitored and metered in real time. What if the network could detect leaks, automatically reroute water and send assistance all by itself, fixing problems before they are problems? What if the network could save money and, more importantly, save water? Well, it can. How do we know? Because we've already built one. H2.0, the Smart Water Network. From ideation to realization, created by Deloitte Digital.
So, that's crocodile and dealer, that's not a knife, that's a knife, that is a prototype. So, but you look at it, how did that happen? Somebody turned up one day whose job it is to, he's got the same sort of job as me, do whatever you feel like and something interesting will happen. He did it in the open. People could walk past and see. Started to understand and think, you know what? Oh, I can 3D print stuff. I can do motion graphics. It uses IBM Watson in the back as well to do the artificial intelligence about leaks, pressure, flooded pits and all that sort of stuff. Again, what's the business case for that? Don't know. But anyway, the managing partner of Victoria says, it's like, this thing, why don't we stick it in the middle of Deloitte reception? Boom. So suddenly clients come in, oh, wow. And one day, one of the partners from Adelaide comes in, he's like, work with a client that's got really large fuel depots all over the country. Could we create a system like that for them. And so we could show how they could use Internet of Things and boom, new job comes in to do that. Probably what will happen after that is that we'll probably go and implement the bloody thing somewhere. So again, it's this sort of notion of exploring, doing it in the open, having people get involved, not trying to put them through stage gates and prove stuff. It's like, do stuff, innovation, trying new ideas. That's what it's about. That's the environment. 2006, I got one of my designers to come into my office and I drew a thing about what I thought the future of accounting might look like. I said, mate, you're a designer, make that look good. He comes back with that. I'm like, mate, it looks like freaking Donkey Kong. He's German. Peter, do you understand what a prototype is? I'm like, yeah. He goes, well, I don't think so. If I had this all perfect and I showed that to somebody, they're all going to say it's done. That is rough. That's discussable. It's like when somebody says, well, if you do it, we've all done it. Oh, look, here's my 75-page, perfectly, reviewed and bound strategic plan. Can I get your feedback? And you go, oh, yeah, the feedback, I don't think that's quite right. And, what? I didn't want feedback. I wanted a pat on the back. I wanted to say, look at how wonderful this is, because you're not going to have any input or discussion because it's finished. This is unresolved. It involves people. We then sort of created a bit of a solution architecture. So the idea was that in that time, my view was clients didn't really want accounting systems. They don't even really want accountants. They just want their accounting done. They want somebody who can advise them. They want to make sure their compliance work and they want to understand what's going on in their business. But in those days, cloud wasn't really around. Xero had only just started. There was only a few systems. So most clients were self-managed. 40% of our cost was getting data from our clients in a format that we could actually do tax returns and financial statements and all that stuff. So it was like, there was no data tool out there that I could find. So I got my two best software engineers and said, guys, go and show me how fast you can build a system that does tax returns and ingest data from clients, and you got 2 weeks. So they came back, 2 software engineers could do completely error-free tax returns, financial statements in 20% of the time that accountants could do. Wow, game changer. Wow, we've cut it all out. So, so that tool, Sync Direct, so I go to the powers that be. Like, okay, look, we've developed this thing, I reckon it's a game changer, boom, and then, oh, can you prove it to me, and blah, 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 blah. I actually said to the exec, it's like, I think I'm at Kodak. And I'm like, why? I said, because I walked in and said, I can cut the cost of one of your core activities by 80%, and you want me to do a business case or something. Like, no, I'm not going to answer any more questions, but I need some money to build out this data upload tool. So I gave it away. I rang some of my mates around a software company and said, I've got this software. I know that it will be a never-ending fight for me to try and get R&D money to continue to develop it. But if I say we're going to use it and pay you to do it, knock yourselves out. I pulled that off the web yesterday. 2007, 11 years later, it still lives, it's still used, we used it. But politically, it wasn't about that I own this innovation, it was that this was a foundational building block that I needed, and if I couldn't get it done myself, notwithstanding that our guys built it, give it away, keep it alive, and build on there. Go and do what you can do, don't worry about what you can't, but make sure what you need is there, yeah? Innovation is not about what you have, it's what you can get, okay? It's not about what you want, it's what you need. And we turned that into Deloitte Private Connect, which is a subscription-based service for our clients. We give them their accounting system, do their accounting, do all their compliance, monitor on a real-time basis with live feeds if anything unusual happens in their accounts, and you meet your accountant once a month, twice a month. I meet mine every 2 months, go through the business, and they don't say, where's that receipt, where's it, because it just happens as you go. So it's completely changed the experience, and then it also changed the experience for our staff.
Connect helps Deloitte to embrace the digital future because it's a cloud-based accounting platform.
All our resources, all our emails, our tasks, our employee groups are in one space.
You're going to have one login, one password, and then you're going to be able to access all of the systems that you need.
Deloitte Private Connect portal is taking us forward into working real time with our clients and being able to deliver a streamlined service right through from the bookkeeping services to year-end compliance.
It's easy to use and everyone's able to access it in real time.
And each practitioner within Deloitte Private has the same view. The real challenge we've had in our business has been keeping track of all of those deadlines for our clients. We're able to set the deadlines, we'll get reminders when the tasks are coming up.
If they log onto the portal and see that there's a red task, then that should be the priority for the day.
I'm very into colour coordinating, so it makes it very easy.
Happy people whose robots have taken some of their job by actually making it really easy to understand what needs to be done, all that stuff. We're talking about robots. Do you want to see one? All right, here's one. Okay, Deloitte audits 25,000, 30,000 self-managed super funds every year. One of the processes that you have to do when you audit a super fund is to, one, you're the auditor, you come in tomorrow, I'm going to do all these audits, but I've got to go through things like what's on the go, and then I might have to go and log into ASIC to go and say, here's the company number, does that match the company number and name that we've got? And then take a PDF and copy it down, and it's really boring, takes 15 minutes. So we set up a robot goes in, do the pre-audit work, what files are we going to work on as we pull down that file, go to the ASIC website, do the ABN lookup, pull those details, extract it into a PDF, save it onto the file. There's no issue because it matches what we've got on our file, and we give it a green tick, and the robot's finished its job. Now, would you like to be one of the people who 25,000 times a year click through ASIC and search and then find if it matches and that? No. You want robots to do your job. You want robots to do the stuff that's menial, boring, and can serve it and get stuff out of the way so you can focus on the stuff that might be wrong or the stuff that you can add some value in. You don't get trained at uni to do cut and paste. Well, a lot of accountants do, but they spend their life doing Control-C, Control-V. That's what I used to say with training, You want staff training? Yeah, Control-C, Control-V, because that's all you'll be doing for the next 3 years. Nowadays, it's more like I can get data feeds and I can do stuff with that data and I can advise my clients. Number one, you cannot have great client experience without great employee experiences. End of story. Marketers, you've got to talk to your HR people. HR people tell your marketers, right? Great client experiences, I was at I'm on the board of a Reach Foundation, this youth thing, and it's all about feelings and heart and all that stuff. And they got me, I think, maybe just to make shit happen. But it was like they had this thing, call somebody you love. And I was tempted to call Netflix customer service. Have you ever called Netflix customer service? You talk to people and they've got an American accent. It's like if an American talks about technology, they could be a cleaner, but that must be American, they must know, there must be Steve Jobs, And they talk and they're like, oh, yep, no problem. Oh, look, we'll just hang on the phone while you sort that out. And you don't never get told turn your computer off and on or unplug your modem. They sort it out and they're friendly. Like Netflix, we're AI and all that but they understand customer service is like help people solve problems and don't do it with chatbots that don't understand you. So, and you can imagine those poor people with our banks and telcos who think Australians are the most rude, arrogant people in the world because, you're on the phone and Telstra send me these stupid text messages. Call them up the other day, what's your call about? Text message. We don't understand text message. I'm like, aren't you a telco? Don't you understand data? Can you be a telco? So I'll finish off on this. This is one of my favourite political stories. So this is young Lachlan McDonald. Back in 2012, when he came into Deloitte as a UX designer, he went to his induction and they said, we have an intranet thing called DIS, Deloitte Australia Intranet Service or something, the platform upon which we communicate. They said, update his DIS profile. They probably didn't have this in mind. You only live once, career limiting move, because Lachlan redesigned the intranet page, did a JavaScript injection, hacked the intranet, and that's what his profile page looked like when everybody else's profile page looked like a bad Notepad HTML page from 1994. And if you haven't seen one of them, go and look at a government website, you'll get the picture. So Lachlan does this. Suddenly, there's about 60 comments, and the IT CIO at about comment 70 says, in relation to this post, it is important to note, changes to Deloitte production systems without approval is a violation of IT policy. Security breach can have secure ramifications for the firm. You're being investigated by P&P. That's not the sort of political police or whatever, it's the people in performance, which basically means, mate, you are in deep. So I see this post, I ring up Lockie, said, mate, you don't know who I am, but they're coming after you. Tell them that if they want to talk to you, they've got to go through me. Number one rule. If you're a leader, protect your bloody innovators, right? Did Lockie do the wrong thing? Yeah, hacking a production system ain't the smartest thing to do. But he didn't break it. He knew he wasn't going to break it. Did the IT guys do the wrong thing? No, telling people don't sort of make... If we had everybody every day hack the production systems, we'd fall over. So they were sort of in a way, well, did Lockie do the right thing by saying, I can make this better, much better? Yeah, he did. So I said, because I, again, never waste a crisis. So I've got Lockie's back. Joe Vu, one of our security guys, developers tend to fix things a lot faster when somebody demonstrates a working and benign exploit to a rather fundamental bug. Good companies out there run bounty hunters. Basically, Lachlan's done free pen testing for Deloitte while starting a conversation about what is obviously a hot topic within the firm. I think that should be congratulated rather than punished. So I'm like, cool, Joe, I think you're right, Joe. The big question is, why don't we have an open environment where people like Lachlan can improve our systems and interfaces? We have to focus on leveraging passion and creativity of people by providing them an environment that lets us take us forward. So sort of, yeah, that's about comment 80. Now we're in the Chief Information Security Officer, who we know doesn't like computers, using the internet. I'd like to conclude this thread with the following thoughts. Anybody can innovate, blah, blah, blah. Best to innovate within the confines of the real world. This is a waste of Deloitte resources, blah, blah. I sort of got a bit annoyed when he said I'd conclude this thread, because just because you're the Chief Information Security Officer, what you can tell people they're not allowed to talk anymore? Anyway, big trouble. Swiggers, the boss. I'm following this debate, proud we can discuss the topic and be open about it. At the same time, I'm concerned about the hacking and can never condone such activity. So what would you do then? You're me, you ring your marketing guy, because he's brilliant with words. Red Hill, I'm losing this argument, swing it back. So, Red Hill, he went to the Art of Hacking in Netherlands Media Institute, because that's what Red Hill does. I learned that their hacking is a sort of broader term. It means addressing a sort of art, a sort of imperfection. But I would point out one of our guiding principles is that we must be prepared to disrupt ourselves. That's why we've got to read it, Kai. It's controlled anarchy. Not, we need to go from the edge to the centre of the edge, not just the centre for the edge. Boom, boom, boom. The boss comes in. What a great response, David. Love the idea. Must be willing to challenge and disrupt. And I'm like, yes, I'm home. So I then ring Lockie and say, Lockie, you are the fifth in a succession of people who've hacked the internet and I've covered your ass. You will now go and build an open environment where you can hack away with access to APIs, and anybody who wants to build things can do it whenever they feel like. Lockie said, what's the budget? I said, Lockie, the budget is you've got a job. The other part of the budget is if you did this at home, how would you do it? I'd probably use WordPress and I'd probably use GitHub. And why would you do that, Lockie? Well, they're open source and free and good. It's like, yes, that's what we do. So Sandy Edge was born. It is a sandbox. We build apps for it. If innovations come through, run hackathons on it. It happened sort of built in about 2013, lives today. Lockie now works for Deloitte Digital in the UK, and it's a great story. So how do we do this stuff? Find the edge, find your sponsors, build relationships, be open and inclusive, move forward with urgency, but understand it's not the technology, it's the politics, it's the stuff around the technology that's what makes you succeed. They're all freaking out because I'm over. I hope you're not. Thanks very much.